Good morning, attendees. Welcome to Medical Fair Asia Digital Edition Technical Presentation. This session will be presented by Mr. Andy Siow of GS1 Singapore. He will be telling us the GS1 Global Standards for Healthcare. Before we begin, please note there is a Q&A function in this webinar. Feel free to leave your questions here during the session. With that, let us all now welcome Mr. Siow. Mr. Siow, please.
All right, thank you, Weya, for the introduction. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in this webinar to better understand how GS1 standards are used for the healthcare sector. I'm Andy Siow, Senior Manager for the Technical Standards and Services with GS1 Singapore. Okay. Yeah. So in my presentation, I will give an introduction to GS1 Healthcare, how GS1 Standards supports the healthcare industry, followed by a brief overview on the global regulatory compliance for pharmaceuticals and medical device pertaining to serialization and also unique device identification. Right. So for those who are new to GS1, so GS1 Singapore is one of the 150 independent, neutral, non-for-profit organizations across 150 countries worldwide. So we help companies involved in making, moving, and trading goods to automate, standardize, and enhance efficiency in their supply chain processes. So the GS1 Barcode is one of the most widely used supply chain standards in the world, enabling more than 2 million of our member companies globally to uniquely identify, capture, and share supply chain data critical to their business. So when you step into a supermarket or a retail pharmacy store, you pick up any products. So most likely you will see the product label and you will look at it, and you will see a barcode on it. So that is how extensively our standards are being used in the FMCG retail sector, facilitating B2B and B2C transaction at the product and also logistic level. So replicating our success from supporting the global retail trade for over the past 47 years, we have moved on to also actively work with the healthcare stakeholders to share on how GS1 standards can be equally effective in supporting healthcare industry to support and improve healthcare supply chain processes and enhance patient safety with the use of barcodes. So the GS1 Healthcare envision a future in which the healthcare sector achieve harmonized implementation of global standards for business and clinical processes. And our mission is to be a neutral and open community where we bring together healthcare stakeholders to discuss and implement our standards. So GS1 is part of the Joint Initiative Council. The council is formed to further the important role of healthcare informatics standards. And one of the important aspects of this group is to address the interoperability of information and processes across healthcare domains. The SDOs in the Joint Initiative Council collaborate on standards-based initiative that offers practical solutions. And GS1 play a key role in providing our expertise in the area of product identification and supply chain standards. At the global and local level, we are also collaborating with various healthcare organizations and associations contributing and supporting different areas of work related to the healthcare sector. So this slide shows you some of our global users in the GS1 healthcare community, and it continues to grow every year. So on the left, there are the pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturers, distributors, and wholesalers. On the right, we have also the logistics service and solution providers. So the logistics service and solution providers are also equally important, as they are the ones who will deliver the healthcare related services or solution to the stakeholders in one way or another. So making sure that they understand how GS1 standards are applied and used will ensure a smooth deployment of the needed services or solutions to the healthcare stakeholders, and thereby building a more complete healthcare ecosystem. In 2016, we launched Project Imagine, an initiative where we engage the healthcare providers to implement GS1 standards in the hospital. So these are some of the government agencies, including GPOs, hospitals around the world, which had already implemented GS1 standards in the hospital supply chain. We have documented many of these implementation in our annual Global Healthcare Reference Book, and it's available on our website. So if you need inspiration in implementing GS1 standards in your organization, you may refer to these documents where you can pick up some good learning points. Next, I will touch on how GS1 standards supports the healthcare industry. So some of the common global healthcare challenges includes rising costs in healthcare, medical errors, counterfeit issues, traceability and recall not meeting regulatory requirements, and a lot of manual processes which makes supply chain inefficient. So in GS1, we believe that standards can form one of the fundamental building blocks to resolve these challenges as it creates interoperability, simplifies processes, and provide a consistent way to collaborate with the trading partners. This slide gives you a high-level overview of GS1 System of Standards. So you can look at it from 3 different layers. The first layer is the identification standards. Any objects in supply chain can be identified using a GS1 identification key. For example, a global trade item number, in short, GTIN, can be used to identify a pharmaceutical product or a medical device. And when you are placing a group of products into a pallet, you can use the Serial Shipping Container Code, SSCC, to identify the pallet as a logistic unit. Or for example, if you would like to identify a specific medical device asset within a hospital, you may utilize the Global Returnable Asset or Individual Asset Identifier to identify that asset itself. So even down to caregiver or a patient level, so we have a GS1 identification key for it. So the GS1 identification standards provide a comprehensive list of ID keys for different usage. The second layer is the data capturing standards. So once you know which GS1 identification keys to use, then we can move on to select a suitable data carriers to use for capturing the data. So you may use 1D barcodes, 2D barcodes, or RFID tags to capture the data. And of course, different data carriers have different characteristics. So it depends on your requirements and needs. And the third layer is the data exchange standards. So under here, we have the standards to manage master data, transactional data, and also events data. I won't go into the details here. So when all levels of GS1 standards are applied and used, so it creates system interoperability and also better supply chain visibility to all trading partners. Just an easy way to remember the GS1 System of Standards. So you just need to remember, identify, capture, and share. Just to drill a little bit deeper into the GS1 identification standards, so one of the most commonly used GS1 identification keys is the global trade item number. The GTIN can be used by a company to uniquely identify all its trade items. GS1 defines trade item as products or services that are priced, ordered, or invoiced at any point in the supply chain. It can be also used to identify types of products at any packaging level, for example, consumer unit, inner pack, case, pallet. The GTIN is fully compatible with ISO IEC 15459. So what you see here is an example of GTIN 13 barcode, which comprises of 13 digits, and the 13 digits can be broken into 3 portions, which includes the GS1 company prefix, the item reference number, and check digit. Another key benefits of GS1 barcode is in the way of structuring data elements. So GS1 Application Identifier, in short AIs, are numeric prefixes used in barcode to define the meaning and the format of the encoded data elements. So AIs are used when you need to encode additional data into your barcode. So we have defined more than 100 AIs in total. And in healthcare, these are the 4 widely used AIs. So 01 refers to GTIN, 10 refers to the batch lot number, 17 refers to expiry date, 21 refers to the serial number. So for a full list of the GS1 application identifiers and their definitions, you may refer to the GS1 general specification. And in terms of data carrier standards, so under the GS1 family of barcodes, so there are general 1D barcodes such as UPC, and there are also 2D barcodes such as the data matrix and QR code, which can be used when you need to encode more data into a single barcode. Then we also have a GS1 data bar, usually used for small to mark items. And lastly, we have a 1D barcode for general distribution and logistics using GS1 128 or ITF 14. So the most commonly used barcode for the healthcare are EAN 13, GS1 data matrix, and also the GS1 128 barcode. And this is how it looks like on a GS1 128 barcode and GS1 data matrix when you encode GTIN, expiry date, batch number, and serial number into one single barcode. Each of the data elements are separated by the application identifiers. On medical device itself, so GS1 standards support all stakeholders in meeting the UDI requirements. So the US FDA, the European Commission, and also the other regulators have made patient safety a strategic priority by developing legislation for the UDI. So how you can create a UDI using GS1 standards? A UDI typically comprises of a UDI DI plus a UDI PI. So DI here stands for device identifier, and PI stands for the production identifier. And in GS1 term, the UDI DI refers to the GTIN, and the UDI PI refers to the GS1 Application Identifier. And there is also this basic UDI DI, which is a new identification requirements needed for the EU UDI registration. And in GS1 term, we are referring it to the global model number. So this basic UDI DI is for the purpose to be updated onto the EU UDAMAC database. As medical device manufacturer, you will have to decide for the production identifier what data are required to be included in your UDI label. So just to re-emphasize, the GS1 barcode can be implemented on all healthcare products such as pharmaceuticals, medical device, retail or non-retail products. And you can get started with using GS1 barcode by subscribing your company as a GS1 member. So we have different application types for different needs. So you may visit the GS1 Singapore website for more details. So next, I will briefly touch on the global regulatory landscape pertaining to the needs for unique identification labels for the pharmaceutical and medical devices. So this slide gives you an overview of the various regulations around the world which require pharmaceutical products to be uniquely identified, and where GS1 standards are able to support. In EU, there is the Falsified Medicine Directive. In the US, there is the Drug Supply Chain Security Act. In Australia, there is TG091, which covers labeling requirements for prescription medicines. In South Korea, all pharmaceutical products needs to be uniquely identified and serialized, and the list goes on. So more recently, Malaysia and also Indonesia have also announced plan for requirements on traceability and serialization. So just to touch on the two major markets, US and EU requires manufacturers, distributors, pharmacies, including the retail and hospitals, to move towards serialization and having end-to-end product traceability. On product label requirements, they are recommending to use the GS1 data matrix code with GTIN, batch number, expiry date, and serial number. For the US market, serialization has to be done by 2019, and company needs to have their traceability system in place by 2023. And in EU, both serialization and its end-to-end verification system must be ready by February 2019, which is now already in force. So this means that if you're exporting your products to this market, you have to comply to the serialization and traceability requirements. On the EUDI regulation front, the US FDA released in September 2013 on the UDI rules, so establishing UDI systems, which is to apply to all medical device placed in the US market. In EU, the medical device regulation and in vitro diagnostic regulations were introduced on April 2017, and it defines the requirements for the EU UDI system. In China, the China National Medical Product Administration released their rules for UDI system for medical device in August 2019. And since October 2019, they have announced the pilot implementation of UDI for the first batch of medical device. So GS1 has been designated by US FDA, European Commission, and China National Medical Administration as the issuing entity for UDIs. So we have also seen similar UDI regulations developing in South Korea, Turkey, India, and more are coming up. And a most recent, HSA has announced their UDI implementation plan in Singapore too. So for the latest update on the UDI regulation in the various regions, so you may need to monitor the local healthcare authorities website. And I have provided some links here on the reference source for the US, EU, and Singapore. Yeah, so I hope my sharing provides you with a better understanding of GS1 standards used in the healthcare sector. And if you have any questions, this is my email contact, and you can reach out to me via the email. Yeah. That's all for my sharing and presentation. Back to you, Wei Yao.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Siow. This technical presentation will be available for on-demand viewing on our Medical Fair Asia Digital Edition portal. So just look for it under Agenda, and you can recap this presentation over there. And if you have any question, please note there's also a button below here. If you can see this button, survey form, this is where you can also send questions to Mr. Andy Siow. They'll be able to look at it and get back to you. With that, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. We hope to see you soon. Thank you all.
Take care, everyone.